Hey, we are back. What's today's date, James? I'm so lost.
Monday.
You lost. I think
February.
March 14th.
Today, March 14th.
March 14th. We're back, man. It's been what, like 3 weeks since we've done a push talk?
It might even have been longer than that.
Man, a lot has happened in 3 weeks. I'm trying to think. In 3 weeks, George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery,
Yes.
killers, got indicted and convicted, I think, in federal court. They got convicted in federal court.
And they have been charged with a hate crime officially.
Yeah, and they got convicted of it, I think.
Yep.
I don't think they've been sentenced, so that has happened. We have, well, not we, but the world is at war again.
Yeah. Crank up the moneymaker.
Yeah, so
War, that's what war does. It generates funding for. It generates funding for. I mean, war is a moneymaker. And the people who have it will continue to make it because, well, frankly, they own
the oil.
Well, not just oil, but I mean, you need bandages, you need construction, you need weapons, you need bullets for the weapons. It makes money.
Yeah. It
makes money. All right.
So yeah, I get you, but again, we're back at the world is at war, about to be on the brink of war. What else has happened? Oh, we got our first African American Supreme Court nominee, or female nominee. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in a little while as well. But I mean, let's just take a step back. Let's start off actually with the war in Ukraine. I don't think people are paying attention enough to it, and I don't think there's enough of a siren going on when it comes down to the war in Ukraine, because it's not just something that impacts the people in Ukraine, but it affects the whole world.
It really does.
In a certain way. Definitely America. Like, I don't know, like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was explaining to them that I don't really think that the war in Ukraine is about Ukraine so much as it is about sending a message to America. Putin is really trying to send a message to America, like, that I can play on the same stage as you. I can control the narrative. And I really don't have to fall in line with everything that you would want me to do, because at the end of the day, I got just as many nukes as you do.
Well, yeah. I mean, he would be right. He would be right in saying that. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, what does the Ukraine have to offer that they would even, be marching in the troops for to begin with? I mean, yes, you're setting an example for the United States, but you're attacking a country that really, what do they have to offer?
Yeah, but the thing, it's partial, right? So it is a message to, I believe, and this is my opinion, it's a message to the United States, but at the same time, Russia for a while has wanted to kind of retake back territories that used to be a part of the old Soviet Union, right? Yeah. And Ukraine is a part of that, right? And at the same time, so just thinking about it so for those who haven't been following, right, we know that Ukraine is not a part of NATO. Ukraine was on the brink of actually requesting to become a part of NATO. What that would have done is that would have, in Putin's eyes, that would have expanded the amount of power that America now has over in Europe, because now that's another nation that if they were to go to war or somebody was to attack them, that we have to go and we have to stand up with them and fight with, right? So we have that agreement with Poland. So like, if he was to go past Ukraine and go into Poland, we have to go into that war because we have NATO, right? And NATO says that when you fight one, you fight us all. So they're scared of Western expansion. Is the best way of putting it. Okay. And then to a certain aspect, like, when you think about, so this is the part that I'm probably going to get ripped about, right? Because when you think about America, we are expansive. When you think about when we went to war with Iraq, it took us about 3 days to be in place to go to war with Iraq, because we already have military bases in that area. We already have soldiers in that area. And we do go into other places. Like, we have soldiers around the whole world, literally ready to move at the drop of a dime, because we have military bases. We have boats. We have all this stuff in these different areas, right? How would we feel if Russians had a military base over in Cuba? Right? How would we feel if North Korea or South Korea, North Korea had a military base in Russia, right? That they had closer access to us than they already have. So I mean, I don't think that we would want to consider somebody who we consider in our heads to be a threat to us, to be close to us, and I think that's just human nature. But we do have that impact on the rest of the world.
Right.
I don't know, but at the same time, does it justify the war in Ukraine? Absolutely not. The people of Ukraine don't deserve that. I think that I actually seen an article this morning when I was flying back in that they bombed, like last week, they bombed a women's hospital.
Right.
And one of those women actually died today or yesterday. Her and her unborn baby died. But I think we have a clip of it. Ali, don't we have a clip of it? And I mean, without probably showing too much of it, but I mean, you get the picture, right? That was a women's shelter, women's hospital where women who were pregnant were being housed at. Like, I don't get it, right? When we already at war and no one really understands why you went to war with them, it doesn't logically make sense, right?
Right.
What Putin is trying to get out of Ukraine from a standpoint of concessions, they're not going to do. But how could we as people, I think, and this is kind of going to tie into the next thing we're going to talk about, but how can we as people not see stuff like that and be sentimental to it? Because if you pull up a clip of 9/11, that's what it looked like on 9/11. Mm-hmm. And the world rallied around us on 9/11. That's terrorism. That's straight out terrorism.
Yeah, and it's coming directly from a world power. Not a small foreign country that, is considered to be third world when you're looking at, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and all those other smaller,
mm-hmm.
Arab countries that are considered to be terrorist countries when terrorist acts are coming from the USSR. I say that, some people would say the United States, domestic terrorists. But I agree. It's hard not to be, have compassion when you see scenes like that. One of the things that has bothered me since this war has taken place is the treatment of the African
mm-hmm.
civilians that live there in the Ukraine, and yet and still, and what I the thing that bewilders me, and I'm just kind of sitting back and I'm like, all I could do is shake my hands, like, man, you still have you're on the brink of war, and you still have the audacity to basically be, show racism in trying to get the people. You want to get your citizens out of the country, but you want to pick and choose who leaves the country.
Right.
And that doesn't sit well with me. Yes, you're about to be on. Yes, you want me to be supportive of you and in what you do, as because you're being attacked. But because you're being attacked, you are not you still find the time to mistreat other people. So I kind of have mixed feelings about this whole thing.
So, but
you know what I'm saying?
Ukraine, I think that one of the things that I'm reminded of when I think about all this stuff is that what's going on here is going on everywhere, right? The fact of the reality is that as an American citizen, if we have, right now, let's be honest, if there are people who are stuck inside of a restaurant, right? Or let's say your family, right? You have kids, right? If your kids are stuck inside of a restaurant and there's your kids and there's two old ladies in the restaurant, more than likely you're going to go out to your house first, right? You're going to take care of your house first. And this is no different than what we see in America, right? We see Americans, as Americans, we will go out of the way to do things for Americans that we wouldn't go out of the way to do stuff for other nationalities. So I don't, like, for that, listen, it's wrong. Absolutely. It's definitely wrong that these are Ukrainian, I think, like, partial citizens, or like, half citizenship is Ukrainian. I think they keep the other citizenship in Africa. And some of them are not even citizens of Ukraine, too.
Right.
So I get what you're saying. I really do. It's wrong. It's messed up. At the same time, I can't say, like, oh, Ukraine is the only country that does that, because almost every country is going to protect their own first, right? But I still get it. It's not, but then too, you look at Russia right now. I think the I forget the name of the city begins with an M, where they have no access to food, no access to medications, no access to anything, and they keep coming with a ceasefire agreement. And every single time they come up with one, something just breaks. It doesn't get honored. But those people are being held captive in a city where basically they have no resources to anything. I mean, I think what wars do is they kind of also to expose the conscience of a nation, right? Or when I say the conscience of a nation, be careful because too, like I hope that people wasn't equating me to the former president, right? That's not the conscience. That's not my conscience. But the conscience of the leadership of the nation, because the reality was that we have a system that said that the electoral college determines who the president is, right? He has still 60-some million votes, whether or not I support him or not. But that's a good chunk when our population in America is 130 million people. So that's still close to 50%. So that tells you that it's somewhere in the psychosis of who we are as a nation. And I think that racism. I think I stopped being surprised by realizing that most white people haven't come to the conclusion of how to. Not most. I'll take that back. I'm sorry. Some white people haven't come to the conclusion, or some. No, I'm going to rephrase that too. But some people feel like this. Sorry, take all that back. Some people have not come up, because even in Africa it happens the opposite way, right? Some people have not come to how to deal with people who don't look like you, right? Because in Africa, there's certain people in Africa. I know a teacher of mine she's a white American, right? And she went to Africa and she felt discriminated against on certain obligations in Africa because, again, she looked different, right? I think that as people, it's hard to deal with people who don't look like you, because even I remember one time, I remember working in the restaurant industry, and this guy was upset because one of my managers, he called him boss, and the guy called the office complaining. It was a black guy. He was like, how come I was the only one that he called boss to? And he said, there was a whole bunch of other people who were in line before me. They were all white. He never called none of them boss. Why I have to be boss? And he brought to my perspective his last words to me was, my dollar bleeds the same way their dollar does, right? What he was simply trying to say is that I deserve the same type of respect, the same type of communication that they would get. Just because me and you black, and I may talk to the person in front of me, hey, how are you? And you come in like, hey, bro, how can I help you? You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't change how I deal with you based upon where I feel like there's common ground, right? If I'm going to treat people a certain kind of way, I treat everybody the same kind of way. So I think that, again, for most people, most countries, we haven't learned how to deal with race. I mean, that's
okay. I get what you're saying, but that does not excuse a country that is on the brink of war not allowing its citizens to leave, or only certain citizens to leave. And that to me, it's not fair. But I mean, I get what you're saying. But I'm not. That does, human life is still human.
But for the record, I completely agree with you. What I'm saying is that I don't have a problem with Ukraine, because this is not something that only Ukraine does. This is something that as a world we do, right? I look at when I've traveled. You travel, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine. She is from Ghana. And she was saying how in order for her to come over here, even just go to school, she had to get a visa, she had to do this. And even for her to go travel to go visit her auntie in the UK, she has to get a visa to go travel, right? As an American citizen, I don't know I don't know that I'm going, if I go to travel to UK, it doesn't require me to have a visa to travel to UK. If I go to travel to France, it doesn't require me to have a visa to travel to France. I use my passport, I come back. But there are some countries like Africa, a lot of people from Africa go through France in order to get to the UK, right? They were giving them straight up beef. Why are you coming to her? I mean, and they were black. I was black. But when they see my American passport, they just asked me about New York, and they stamped me and let me go right in. But the person who was coming from Africa to go to UK to visit family members, it was all like, do you have your visa? Have you applied for it? When was last time? It was so different. And so again, I go back to the perspective that I think that's just a cultural, I think it's just a worldwide thing. And I don't think that, I don't think that America is in the same situation that it will be any different than how Ukraine is handling it. But I get it, it's dead wrong, right? At the end of the day, Titanic, if the ship is going down, everybody should have an option of getting off the ship. It shouldn't be classified by, you were in the lower part of the bunk, you know what I'm saying? You're in the lower part of the boat, so y'all gotta wait. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody should have opportunity to get off the boat if the ship is sinking. So I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm completely in agreement with you that it is a trap. I mean, they need to look into it. But also too, I have to give a shout out to one person in this war, and it won't be Putin. But I have to give a shout out to the president of Ukraine.
Because?
If I'm being honest, if I was president of this country and they told me I need to leave and go to Poland because ultimately, like, this is what they want my head, I'm out of there, I'm going to Poland. The fact that, I'm joking, probably. But the fact that he's actually staying in the country, fighting it out on the ground with his people, I think it speaks a lot of his character. And being that, knowing his history, before he did that, he was an entertainer, he was a comedian. And I think he's like 36, 37. Mm-hmm. So that just speaks a lot about his love and passion for the country in which he serves. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think, it's very commendable that he was willing to stand as a leader, stand and fight for what he believes in. And I think, the problem is what you find far too often is that leaders, they give the directive, but they don't actually stand and fight for anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they, and I get it. They have a country to run it. And likewise, so does he. But the difference between him and Putin and whoever the president of North Korea, these world powers and everything, they have other people to fight the battles for them, but none of them are actually stepping out there with a pistol in hand or standing their ground. They're all belling.
That was America. Our president being in a bunker so far.
Absolutely.
Or probably in another country.
Now, granted, don't get me wrong. The man is up in age, and I get why.
I'm not, when I say president, I'm not referring to just Joe Biden. I'm talking about anybody. Right. It could have been George Bush. They still have protected him.
Absolutely.
So I'm not referring
but to take up arms and be able to fight for what you believe in is something different. But you find leaders, whether they're captain of industry or running a country, you have leaders that they won't. Not all of them are willing to put their beliefs into action by being on the front lines.
Yeah.
We do at Black Push. We're on the front lines. You see people like Reverend Jackson and Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton, and the rest of them. They actually stand their ground to fight for what they believe in. Yeah. And that's all I'm saying is, if you actually you believe in your country, then you need to stand the ground and stand up and fight for what you believe in.
So the last thing about Ukraine, before we just switch over to this next subject, is there's been a statement made that Americans wouldn't mind paying more in gas prices if it helped the Ukrainian people. Are you one of those Americans that wouldn't mind paying more gas?
Repeat that statement.
Basically, like, gas prices will go up because we're not importing so much from Russia anymore, and Americans wouldn't mind paying higher gas prices if it's going to help the people of Ukraine.
I think we all mind paying high gas prices, and it has nothing to do with the Ukraine. And the fact that we paying, the gas prices. Frankly, I'm one of those ones who think that because we have oil reserves here in the United States, why aren't we using what we have here? You have the Alaskan pipeline, and you have other sources. So why are we outsourcing? Reaching out, getting oil from Russia. And okay, if that's the direction that we were getting it from before, we have some in reserves. Why aren't we using that to keep the price down?
So I think from my last thing I read is that he did open up the reserves and pull some from reserves. I do agree to a certain aspect about digging for more gas and digging for more oil, right? Because it does play a huge role in the environment. So I understand, like, for environmentalists who are out there who go crazy when we hear about new pipelines being built. I mean, a lot of times they have to run through areas where we already have animals that are on the verge of extinction.
Right.
Those type of things do become. So I get it from both sides of it, but also too, as a country, that means we just need to shift from using gas. Like, there are other options out here.
Absolutely.
We have other options out here, but we have to. I mean, if one of our resources that we need in order to survive is not something that is available, or as we say, made in America, as much as we need it to be, then maybe it's time for us to start shifting. We can make more electricity. We don't really need to convert to just being so gas lean. And I say that as being a person who has a car that uses gas, but at the same time, it's like I do think that we have to invest more into that. And I would say this, like going back to the question, for me, if you're telling me that gas prices are going up because of the fact that we're not importing so much from Russia, and this is going to help hopefully put strain on Russia to stop the war in Ukraine, I'm down for the higher gas prices, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't think, for me personally, this is just my opinion, I don't think we put a price tag on somebody's life. And the reality is that if this war doesn't stop, more people are going to die on the Russian side as well as the Ukraine side, if that's the narrative, right? If that's the truth, right? But we do see that the trend of gas prices was going up before this. I will be honest, taking away the gas we're getting from Russia did not help. And it's not like we, like in Europe, they're phasing it out of their purchasing. Mm-hmm. America just literally said, like literally one day, we're done with it, right? Mm-hmm. So that does make a different impact. It was going to raise gas prices up a little bit. It will, but it will also hurt the Russian economy, because right now Russia is now trying to make a back deal with India, because now that
for oil
to sell oil to them, right? So we do see that it's impactful, it's working, right? And for me, if that's what it's going to take to help kind of bring this war to an end, and more babies don't have to die, or more people don't have to lose their life for a man who's just a maniac, I'm all in.
As far as oil is concerned, man, we can go back to OPEC and can get our oil from Saudi and whatnot, and we don't have to use Russia at all.
But then it becomes creative too, because Saudi has been linked to different terrorist groups that don't like us. Well, so I mean, it's like we're funding. We go from funding
damned if you do, if you damned if you don't.
Yeah. So the thing is, for me, it would be to tap the reserves we have. Use more and convert from using that type of resources. If America can't produce enough if we can't produce enough of the resource in order to kind of fund ourselves, then maybe we need to switch to something else. We can, like I said, we can always make more. We have so many nuclear weapons. We can build more nuclear plants around here. We could.
But that doesn't help. That doesn't help people when there's other vehicles are gas powered using fossil fuels. We're still trying to make the electric vehicle more economical for the common person, and they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But
the cost of the vehicle, the cost of the battery is so high.
But it's just like anything, though. I mean, that's that initial pain. But you look at, like, we used to have this flat screen TV in front of us, right?
Right.
8 years ago, you walked inside of Walmart, it was the dream. Like, one day, mommy, I'm gonna get that job, and I'm gonna get you that flat screen TV.
Right.
So $1,000 for like a 20-inch, right? Now you can go and buy a 55-inch for $399, right? As we use it more, as it begins to expand itself, as we begin to open up more power, like charging plants and stuff like that across the country, it does. Because you think about it, when vehicles first came out, they were using gas. That was a process. It was very expensive. Only the rich of the rich had it. As more people begin to use it, and they begin to see the economics behind it, then the price of it went down. It's going to happen. Like Teslas are a totally different price today than they were 5 years ago, right? And more companies like Ford just released that they're getting ready to produce a pickup truck that will be all electric, I think, by the end of next year, right?
Yeah.
So as more people begin to shift over there, we can do it. It's within our reach. And we was actually on a board meeting I was on last night. We were talking about, we had the same discussion about allowing people to dream bigger than what their expectations are. Mm-hmm. And we were like, and my comment was like, if you have nothing to dream for, like, what's the purpose, right? What's the purpose of life? You wake up and it's just like, okay, I'm just going to go through a regular routine. But there's nothing bigger for me to dream past, or nothing bigger for me to dream for, right? And that actually goes to our last topic, right? Because Joe Biden has kept his word. Nope, not student loans. He kept his word, and he said that if the Supreme Court position became available, he would nominate the first black woman or African American woman, right? And he has chosen somebody from the good old South Florida, Judge Ketanji Jackson. And I think we have a clip of him actually.
A daughter of former public school teachers, a proven consensus builder, an accomplished lawyer, a distinguished jurist, one of the nation's most prestigious courts. My nominee for the United States Supreme Court is Judge Ketanji Jackson.
So he nominated Judge Ketanji Jackson, right? But I really want people to focus on the fact, for all of us who are happy about it, she's not confirmed yet, right? We have to, I know a lot of people who are in D.C. right now as we speak, marching for her to make sure that she gets put into office. And again, so I'm one of those people too, and you probably, I've said this before, I'm not excited by a black face, because a black face in power or in position doesn't mean that we're going to get benefits for the black community, right? My biggest thing is that her track record kind of speaks for herself. I know of her from the South Florida area, but her track record speaks for herself. And there was a point, she tells a story even in that in the nomination process, where she said that she went to a high school guidance counselor and said, I want to go to Harvard and I want to go to Harvard Law School. And her guidance counselor looked at her and told her, don't dream so high or don't dream so big, right? But imagine if she would have taken that advice and stuck to it. You know what I'm saying? And just was like, I'm never going to be able to do this.
Right.
But she went to Harvard Law School, and then too, on top of that, she was a federal public defender. She defended people. And again, we talk about this all the time. A lot of judges that are out here, mostly, I think I read a report the other day, 68% of judges that are elected right now and throughout the whole country are former prosecutors, right? They have no experience on what it's like to be in defense, have no experience on what it's like to take stuff to trial from the other perspective of it. So we wonder why when we go into a courtroom, it seems like the judge is more friendly to the DA's department. They were probably having lunch with them 2 days before they got elected to the bench, right? I love the fact that she has the experience of being a public defender, but at the same time, she has to know how to deal with. She does a business law. She's, you know what I'm saying? And then she even clerked for Justice Stephen Breyer, right? But I still feel like Republicans are gonna find something wrong with her.
Well, but they quite often they are out there fishing for anybody that isn't in their party. But both parties do it. When it comes to getting someone confirmed, as you got to go through the gauntlet of fire when it comes to that position. You get scrutinized up and down. When it comes to that position and being nominated, because you're going to be able to you're going to be a part of a team that makes a difference, that impacts the entire country.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that they get their person in. And, it's a chess game.
But I don't remember it being the last couple of Supreme Court justices have been more polarized. Well, okay, take for example, Brett Kavanaugh. He did come with some drama. A lady had just accused him of groping her inappropriately when they were in college, right? So he came with some drama to the board, right? I understand why they were a little more.
Same thing.
Same thing, but my thing is that even back in the days of Thomas, you didn't see it as being so divisive. If the person, because their job was to just look at the person and say, is this person qualified to sit on the Supreme Court, right? That's what the Senate's job is. Judge Ketanji Jackson is very qualified to be on the Supreme Court, but the problem is that I feel like it won't be when we say bipartisan, it's crazy that we have to say it's going to be a bipartisan vote. And when you ask, what do you think the vote count is going to come out, they say, we think we can get 2 Republicans. It'll be 52 when there's 48 other Republicans in the Senate.
Right.
For us to have let 52 be that's bipartisan, now become the new thing, shame on us.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of the game right now. The political atmosphere in which we live in today and deal with on a daily basis, when you're talking about just the two majority Republican, both the Republican and the Democratic Party, have chosen sides, and they don't like to cross the aisle. They avoid crossing the aisle as much as possible because they want what they want for their team to win when it comes to bringing players that will help their team out in the long run.
Yeah.
So a vote, getting someone in like Judge Jackson, it doesn't bode well for the Republican Party at the end of the day. Although, and this is although she's supposed to be she's supposed to be unbiased along with the rest of them, but and be able to interpret law. Even with that being said, you have members of each party who wants the law interpreted in such a way that it favors them.
See, it's like the Bible. Everybody, me and you can both read the same verse, and then you can probably come up with two different messages out of it.
Right.
So I get it. All I do want to remind people of is that when it comes down to it, we can't just be satisfied with her being nominated. That's not a victory.
Right.
The victory is going to be in us making sure that she's confirmed. And we need to be in D.C. We need to be on the phone. If you can't afford to go to D.C., you got a phone. Pick up the phone, call your senator, and let them know that they need to vote yes when it comes to her nomination, because it is going to be pretty intense. I know she's already been moving her way through the Capitol, meeting with senators and stuff like that, doing the part that she has to do on it. But we have a role to play in it too, and we can't just be. And this is just like with anything we talk about all the time. We can't just be happy that we got justice for George Floyd. We can't be happy until we see the George Floyd Policing Act passed and signed into law. Mm-hmm. That's when we can celebrate doing something for George Floyd. Because if we only celebrate the victory of George Floyd's life, then there's going to be more lives following this that are lost because we haven't done anything at the moment in the movement. And we need them to pass the George Floyd Policing Act. We need them to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We need them to pass all these different rules, because even right now, what is the big thing that we're pushing in the state of Georgia is that Georgia is getting ready to and Florida just passed. Now we're not going to go too much into this, but Florida just passed the bill that has been dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, and now Georgia's seen that it passed in Florida, and now Georgia's getting ready to present something similar to it, and it's going to be a lot more aggressive than the one in Florida. Georgia right now is also getting ready to push legislation to allow everybody pretty much to be able to carry your arms out openly without having to go get a license, literally. So how you went through the process of getting your carry permit, if this law is passed, there will be no need for a carry permit anymore. You'll have the right to carry. So how, if you know what I'm saying, really, is that the world that we want to live in? But, again, if we don't exercise the most fundamental voice we have in society, which is our voice to vote, then don't cry and complain about it. Right. And if you don't know how to vote, call us, or you can go to sos.ga.gov. If you're in the state of Georgia, call other organizations like People's Agenda. So many different organizations out here. Black Voters Matter doing the work because it's important. And we have an election coming up. A lot of my friends, when I was going down Facebook last week, all I seen was qualified. So there's a lot of good candidates out there. Educate yourself and get out and vote. But we'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And we may even we'll bring some more special guests out the week, but I'm super excited to be back. We'll be back every day at 1 o'clock, 1 to 1:30 traditionally. We got Ali sitting over there looking like Coolio. I wish we could turn the camera on him. But I just want to encourage everybody, please get out and register to vote if you have not registered to vote. The time is now. And know who the people are who are running for your local offices, your state offices, because this election is just as important as the presidential election, if not more. For this country,
absolutely,
in the direction of this country, absolutely.
But Georgia's going to the local elections are going to determine how Georgia is going to end up voting in the long run, overall. And they're looking at Georgia to be, for lack of a better phrase, a front runner in how votes are going to go
for the rest of the state.
For the rest of the country. Yeah. So it's going to be, and you can make a difference by making sure that you're registered, by making sure that you do all the necessary components in being registered to vote, and then getting out to vote, and that, and particularly in your local election, because that's the one that's going to impact you first and foremost to begin with. The federal laws, yes, that's going to impact you, but the one, you live in the state, you live in the county, in the county that you live in, within the state, it is all going to affect you directly.
Yeah, so register. If you need more information, you go to our website, www.blackpush.org. Stay in tune. We have a lot of exciting things coming out that'll be rolling out throughout the week, coming up for the rest of the year. So stay in tune. We have a gala event coming up. We have another One Accord conference coming up. Well, we know for a fact in Augusta. So we are super excited about that, and that just came out today. And just so many different things going on. So we encourage you guys to stay following our website at www.blackpush.org for more information. And until tomorrow, guys, stay blessed and stay humble.